Welcome. This is Dr. Vidya Raman. She is the Director of Preoperative Anesthesia, the Senior Director of Faculty Mentoring and Clinical Guidelines Management at Nationwide Children's, and she's also a member of the board for the Society of Pediatric Anesthesia. Thank you for joining me today. And for those of us who may not know you very well, can you please give me a brief description about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Allison, for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here. I've been a pediatric anesthesiologist for about almost 20 years. I am, as Allison mentioned, been at Nationwide for 15 years, and am the senior faculty mentoring and clinical guidelines management director. And it's a great pleasure to be here and chat with you.
As a member of the Society of Pediatric Anesthesia board and the leadership positions that you have at your own institution, what drove you to seek these leadership opportunities?
I think just to be able to do something else and see it from a different view. I think it's always challenging. It's great to be the face of something else, and to see the behind the scenes. I like seeing behind the scenes, like, oh, this is how this and this happens, and sort of a curiosity point too, like, oh, how does this run? What does it take to run this? What is involved actually to be successful at one of these things? What does it mean to run a meeting? What does it mean to do these things? And I think that was part of my interest in doing that. And I feel like I'm in the next, I should do that, because I'm at that level of, where I should, give up some of my time. A lot of these are all our voluntary activities. Nothing is a paid position. So these things, organizations, and the success is because of the people who help run it and help manage it. And I think it's important to give back too.
Mm-hmm. I know that you have received your MBA, but any recommendations or advice on training that you received for these leadership roles?
Yeah, I mean, I did, the hospital had a leadership course. I mean, that sort of interested me, and I took advantage of that. I read a lot of books. And I think this came up somewhere, I can't remember informally, but reading books outside your field, especially in medicine, about leadership, especially in business world and stuff, is it just expands your horizons. I'm always reading. I don't read as much medicine as I should, I think, but I'm reading. I've read more business books, and I read, and because there's so many, I've also prescribed I'm a big believer in summaries, and so I read a lot of summaries of books just to get the main idea and see if there's something interested, and just so that I know something about what's out there. Like, there's all these books like Difficult Conversations, Crucial Conversations. I'm trying to get the recent one, Verbal Judo. I read the Voss's book about, the FBI guy who's about hostage negotiations. I mean, those are all I really enjoy them. And I think those are what expands your worldview, and it's not, I think it's not just pertinent to business. I think it helps when you're dealing with people and how you deal with them. Even though I found hostage negotiation probably the most pertinent in our field. So I always feel like there's hostage negotiation going on. So
what advice would you give to a fellow anesthesiologist who feels that their career has become stagnant?
Oh, I mean, I give my own mind. I give myself advice. I think that you have to see where you are in your life. Are you, for me, and for instance, I would love to move up in leadership, and sometimes it's not possible because of other constraints, family constraints, and I have kids in high school. a husband who's also a physician. So, and we made life here 15 years. It's hard to pick up and move and just go. And so I had a wonderful opportunity for becoming a division chief, and I would have totally taken it, but for other factors. And so I do feel I myself feel stuck necessarily, but I know it's also temporary, and I know that you have to be constantly moving. You can't, when you feel stuck, be actually stuck. Like you can't not do anything. So you have to be constantly trying to improve yourself. How do you get to the next level? What can you do extra? Is there something that you work on or whatever? Like for instance, I'm looking at getting a board certification in getting how to run boards. And so just because that's something I'm interested in doing. So I, looking into that and doing doing things to to sort of become unstuck. And also it's sort of a mindset. I think that the really important to think is the mindset. I do feel stuck. So I know that I have to do things that will make my, look at my CV, see where the gaps are, see if I can do something to fill those gaps in, see if the other thing I'll tell you that's really hard is to have somebody actually look at your CV and be honest with you about where your gaps are and what you can do to improve. That is that in itself would be if you can get someone to do that. Like I've done that for some people. I can do it I think at a level, like a junior person who's rising up. And I'm brutally honest, like do this, do that. You need this. But in my level, I can't see it as well for myself. And so that I think to find someone to help you with finding out where exactly is your gap and be honest, like, hey, you need to do this more or that more, or maybe you don't have as many things in this area.
Mm-hmm.
So to figure out, what you can do to get unstuck
Mm-hmm.
and move up. And to realize it's sometimes not all your fault. Sometimes it's just a subjective thing, especially if you're trying to go into a leadership position. You're in a competition. There's other people, maybe, and it's a lot of subjective elements that you can't control. So you can only control what you have. So you got to figure out, like, maybe seeing when somebody else got a position you didn't, what did they have that you didn't,
Mm-hmm.
and figure it out and try to fill those gaps in. And maybe next time you'll be lucky. But if you don't try and you don't ask, you don't interview, you're not going to get it. So that's.
I think it's important to highlight what you said, that feeling stagnant is your own perception and that you have to pave your road. So maybe it's a time for a pivot in your career. So change lanes and try to move forward in another direction of interest to you.
Okay.
And sometimes those doors open up more than staying on the other path. So that's really, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
What is the biggest obstacle you have faced, and how did you overcome it?
I think it's your own mindset. Honestly, it's your own like figuring out what you want. I think that's been my biggest, like, what do I exactly want to do, and then figuring out how to get there. But figuring out what you exactly want is the hardest, because I think, especially like when you have other balance. Do I want to be chief? Do I want to be administration? Do I want to be in medicine? Do I want to do clinical medicine? What do I want to do? And so I think you need to that I think is the hardest part of the battle. And especially when you're on the where you're seeing, you have, like, I have 15 years, right? Do I have to figure out exactly what I want to do and achieve it? Because it's you can't when you're looking at that side of your career, you have to be very focused and be very conscious of choices. And so you can't just do that, throwing mud on the wall kind of thing that may have been okay when you're younger because you had time. You don't have as much time, and you have to be much more focused in what you want to do. And so I think trying to find out what you want is probably the hardest thing. And I sometimes still struggle with that, just crystallizing exactly and articulating exactly what I want. And sometimes you have to take steps. I think the thing that's hardest, I think, for I would say women in general, or people in this stage of the career, man or woman, I think, is moving. When you've been like 15 years somewhere, one, it's hard to move with kids and in high school and in that transition phase, and then second, you've been here so long, you're comfortable and you know a lot of things. Yeah, leaving this at this level, and if it has to be a lateral or higher move, otherwise it's not worth leaving. Why would you give up all this equity that you've built up kind of in this area to go starting over at this age? It's hard.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. There's a lot of challenges that one has to think about and overcome. As you mentioned, I think one of the hardest ones, and I find this too, is finding what you want to focus in. Where do you want to go? I think that's probably the hardest one, because sometimes you have a lot of interests, and so which one do you focus on?
And I think it's silly to say I want to be chief. What? Why do you want to be chief? You ask these people. I think it's kind of primitive to say I want to be chief. I mean, no. You want to. What do you really want to do? It's not chief. You want to be leadership, and you want to maybe expand your sphere of influence. I think that's a focus, and do whatever you're doing well, and but like I said before, people will recognize when you're doing good work, but at the same time, you also have to be asking and seeking out opportunity. And people recognize that you're looking for opportunity.
Yeah, right. And the other thing you mentioned too is that it's difficult to leave an institution or a place of employment that you feel comfortable, that your family feels established. And so that's another challenge, is, that trade-off of stability or perceived stability to and upheaval, going to a new place, learning all the new tricks, that your family getting uprooted. So it's those are big challenges. I think everyone faces them to some level. Thank you for your time and for your valuable advice. It's been great talking to you and a lot of fun. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you for thinking of me. It's great.